Hey there, Cheesemeisters. Just me for a real quick little announcement. So we have reached the end of season one, and season two is coming up shortly. But we had an update from Spotify that they are discontinuing the service we were using that allowed us to put music at the beginning of the episodes. So we're going to have to change things up a little bit. And we figure beginning of a new season is a good time to make that kind of a change. So we got a theme song coming. We've reached out to another one of our cousins, keeping it all in the family, and he's working on a theme song for us. So until that's ready, we are going to continue to drop new episodes each week, but we're not going to start season two quite yet. What we're going to do instead is drop some Peach Pod After Dark episodes that are otherwise only available on our Patreon channel. And our Peach Pod After Dark series is Leslie and I talking about a different movie each week that connects to a different 90210 episode each week, thematically, or because a guest star also appears in the movie. You know, whatever we sort of feel like making that connection be is what the connection is. But the other thing is that we are attempting to prove my theory that everything comes back to Aaron Spelling. So every movie we watch also has someone in it who featured in another Aaron Spelling production. Could be 90210, could be anything. Oftentimes it's The Love Boat because of the nature of The Love Boat. So for the next couple weeks, we're going to drop Peach Pod After Dark episodes on our normal Wednesday Peach Pod feed. And if you enjoy those, I suggest going and visiting our Patreon account, which we'll link to in the show notes, and checking out the other silly episodes that we are doing on a weekly basis. So coming soon, season two, Cheesemeisters. But until then, join us in the Peach Pod After Dark. All right. I don't remember. Are we calling people on the Peach Pod After Dark Cheesemeisters, or we have to come up with something else? I don't remember.
Maybe we should come up with something else, like Winemeisters or
Boozemeisters.
Boozemeisters. I love that.
Yeah, it's all right, Boozemeisters. What are you drinking tonight?
I made myself an old fashioned.
Very nice. I'm just straight bourbon.
Yeah.
So cheers.
Cheers.
So, Boozemeisters, welcome to episode 2 of the Peach Pod After Dark, the ever-evolving platform through which we examine my theory that everything comes back to Aaron Spelling. I am Jeff, and I'm on a horsey.
I'm Leslie, and I'm as real as a donut.
So tonight we are going to be discussing Quentin Tarantino's 9th movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. The obvious connection here is that in conjunction with season 1, episode 2, The Green Room, the first appearance of Dylan, first appearance of Luke Perry, it seemed only right to watch his final appearance on film, which happened to be in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So the Spelling connection is direct. The 90210 connection is direct. And it's doubled because Rebecca Gayheart is also in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, a character that Leslie has not yet met in 90210 land, but I'm assuming anyone listening to this knows who Rebecca Gayheart is. So
probably why I keep forgetting she was in this, because I'm like, I know this name, but I can never.
You keep forgetting she was in the movie, or in
the movie.
I keep telling you she was in 90210? Okay.
No, I keep forgetting she was in the movie.
Yeah, I mean she's a small but pivotal role.
Yeah.
So I popped hard to see her on the screen. Popped is a wrestling term. When people come out of the audience and the crowd goes crazy, that's called popping. You pop the crowd. So if you react strongly to someone's appearance in a movie, it could be said you popped, or you popped hard, like in a big way.
I never knew either that you were as into wrestling or that you knew this much about wrestling.
I've liked wrestling since I was a little kid. So it one of those things that sort of stuck. I don't know. Not everything does, but that one did.
You will be very sad to know then that every Valentine that I got from my male classmates, which was a wrestler, I did not keep.
Oh.
I was disgusted. I was like, what are these? This is gross.
That's funny. So, I mean, you probably got some Stone Colds and some The Rock and
probably some Jake the Snake. I don't know.
Okay. Jake the Snake. Nice.
See, I at least know him from Boy Meets World, but we're getting on a whole wrong tangent.
That's okay. Things can be cut.
That's true. I know.
Yeah. That's just fine. So as I was, we've chatted a little bit about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and we have different opinions of the movie, which I think will be interesting to get into.
Yeah.
But I was having trouble figuring out what I wanted to even say about this or how we were going to talk about this movie, in part because Tarantino knows so much about movies and so much about film and so much about movies you've never heard of that he is deeply conversant in. And so to have like a thing to say about his work is like, well, if he hears this, he's just going to think, what a silly bitch. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know what we can bring to it. But I had an idea. But first, so we can come back to the idea that I had. Where are you at with Tarantino as a whole and this movie specifically?
Tarantino as a whole, I like his work. I like his storytelling. I think it's really smart. Here's a great connection I just made. Tarantino for me is kind of like Vonnegut. I know
Indiana Zone.
Yeah, exactly. I know I'm supposed to like them, or not even that I'm supposed to like them. I just know that they're good. I know they're intelligent. I just don't always know why. And I think this leads in well to this particular film because it's not that I didn't like it. Oh, it's that I was more unsettled by it than I care to be. But as a fellow creative and an actor, I also know that, who was it that said art should comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable? Yeah. Yeah.
So this movie, so you're comfortable? In relation to this movie?
I guess so. That's what's so weird because I'm like, I just had therapy too. So I'm just, in an analytical mode. I'm like, man, where am I comfortable? Am I too comfortable? Like, am I not pushing myself enough? It could be.
It's a shit spiral.
Yeah. That's a shitstorm, Randy. So that's my long rant of where I am with this movie, but we'll have more with it because that's what the show's for.
Yeah. So you didn't not like it.
No, that's why I think it's so convoluted because it would be unfair to say I didn't like it just because I was unsettled by it. Sure. There are certainly moments in it where I appreciated it. And again, it's Tarantino. Like, it's such an interesting story, and the way he writes his characters and tells them, I was entertained, Sure. I enjoyed it. There were aspects of like the acting world that I saw on film that I'm like, yes, that is true, or that is how I would imagine it to be true in that particular setting. Particularly the little girl, I was like, ooh, it me as a baby. Yeah. But of course, that last 30 minutes, it just...
You have trouble with the violence of it. I
have trouble with the violence of it, which is... Okay. It's not a common thing for me, so no one make assumptions. But it's the violence was a lot for me in this one.
Okay. That's interesting to me because I think this is like his second least violent movie out of the 9. You know what I mean? Like, so I feel like I think we've discussed this, and maybe you haven't seen all of them, but you've seen most of them.
Most of them.
Yeah, I would say Jackie Brown is probably the least bloody, and then this.
Wow.
And then because the rest of them, I mean, you've got Revenge-O-Matics like Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2, and Django, and Inglourious Bastards. Those are all like high body count.
I love the revenge aspect of it, though.
Okay.
Like violent fantasies, yes, love it.
Okay.
Like, I think those speak to the audience more than the violence in this one does. These were just disillusioned thinkers. Mm-hmm. I don't even want to say hippies because they weren't hippies. Hippies are peaceful people. These were just, honestly, they were the disillusioned, privileged fucks from Les Mis. But instead of fighting and creating a revolution for something good, they went and decided to fuck someone up because they were like, he taught us about killing people, so we should kill people. Right. And maybe that was the point of him showing like these assholes never had any good reason to go after these Hollywood types.
Right. So there's a lot there, and I don't know which way to go because there's two big things that I want to talk about based on what you just said. Okay, so let's talk for a second. So the reason that the violence in this movie I don't like the violence in Django.
Yeah.
I think it's comically over the top, but for me it's like, whoa, that's a lot. I love Kill Bill and the stylized, the kung fu, the oh my God, the lopping off of the body parts and it's crazy what happens in that movie.
Yeah.
That doesn't bother me. When I first saw Pulp Fiction, when they kill the guy in the back of the car accidentally, that put me off that whole viewing of that movie. I didn't like it until like the second or third time I saw it. I was like, whoa, there's too much in this movie.
Wow.
So I came around and I love Pulp Fiction, but the first time I saw it, I thought it was too much. But here's why the violence in this one didn't bother me even a little bit. And it's because I was expecting what happened in reality. Mm-hmm. And I was dreading watching the murder of Sharon Tate and Wojtek Frykowski and Abigail Folger and Jay Sebring. Yeah. I watched the whole movie the first time through dreading that moment.
Yeah.
Because of the reality of it. And so where this story goes if you know the reality of the Tate LaBianca murders and Charles Manson. And if you don't, it's a fucked up story and it's really interesting as a thing that really happened. And the book Helter Skelter by Vincent Bugliosi is really good.
Oh, okay.
That's how I learned about it first. He was the attorney that got Manson convicted. And he told the story.
Okay.
So knowing what happened in real life and expecting the Manson killers to go to Sharon's house, when they show up at Rick's house and Cliff is tripping on an acid-soaked cigarette and Rick is in the pool drinking and listening to his radio and then so everything that happens after they break in there, it cracks this tension in your body, in mine anyway, that I was like, oh, this is going somewhere else. And whatever these assholes get is whatever these assholes get. And also the scene is funny. Like the whole, I can watch Brad Pitt point and go, "You were on a horsey." On a loop. It makes me laugh so hard. It was such a great line delivery. It's so funny. And just the way that the attackers, man, go from like ready to spill blood to being totally freaked out, and then on the bad end of everything that happens is cathartic. And it is a release to me to watch that in that instant. Now that the shock of like what happens in the movie, knowing it before I'm sitting down, I still find the scene funny. You know, like it's comical, it's over the top, and I know it's how it's going to end. I know it's going to end with the flamethrower, which is so ridiculous.
Oh my god!
That like the violence in this movie doesn't bother me at all. The movie is not about the violence at the end. The violence at the end is like a release valve, you know?
Yeah, it's weird. Granted, I don't necessarily like gore or violence, but then again, just because you are okay with watching it in a film does not mean you like it. But for some reason, it just hit me in such a strange way, and I wish I could understand why. But yeah, you're saying, I understand what you're saying. Like, it is comically done. I tell you what else made me like, I was feeling stupidly sensitive over was the use of the dog.
Sure. I get that.
And of course, like many dog owners, I do and now anytime I do it, I'm like, oh God.
Right. Yep.
Don't go for his Yeah. Which granted, they totally had it coming if they were going to hurt that dog, which they were, because they were
going to hurt everybody.
They were on something.
They were on a lot of things. I want to circle back to what you were saying about the reason for the killing and how it like doesn't ring true. Like I'm putting that word in your mouth, but
yeah.
I asked you this question over the course of the week, and so I'll ask it again because I think it bears weight on this movie. How familiar are you with the Tate LaBianca murders?
I'll answer this similar to how I answered it in text. I think for a millennial, I'm decently familiar.
Okay.
But again, as a millennial talking to a Gen Xer or anyone older, like not the most familiar. I didn't know it was a thing until watching Mad Men. And then of course, and people, the podcast that you and I listened to, they expressed, well, is Megan being in LA? Is this a hint that she's going to be there?
Right.
Be part of the Tate Sebring murders. So
it's the Tate LaBianca.
Because
there are two nights of murders, Sharon Tate's and then the LaBianca family.
Nights?
Okay, so there you go. Yeah.
See, yeah.
There were two. Yep.
I know the basics.
Yeah. So I think that that book was on like my dad's bookshelf. Like he had a bunch of books, and that was one of them.
Oh, okay.
And it's a nonfiction book. It's called Helter Skelter, and I read a lot of Stephen King, and so I was interested in horror and things like that. And the inside of the book says the story you were about to read will scare the hell out of you. You got me. I'm gonna read this. So it hooked me hard, and it all really happened, and it's all totally fucked up. For those who don't have it's so hard to talk about this without sounding like a know-it-all, because I'm not. I've read the book. You know what I mean?
We're big history nerds. I'll say that.
Yeah. So there were two nights of murders. Lino and Rosemary LaBianca were a married couple that were murdered one night, and Sharon Tate and Jay Sebring, Abigail Folger, and Wojtek Frykowski were all killed the second night. I think that's the right order.
Okay.
And the reason for the murders as put forth as the motive in the trial. And the trial was a tricky thing because they wanted to convict Manson of orchestrating all of this, even though he wasn't there the nights of the murders. He sent people out to kill for him. They wanted to convict him of like conspiracy or whatever the charge was, and then the people who did it of the murders. So they had to say he was orchestrating it, but they were also acting under their own free will. And so the trial is very, it's difficult. It was a difficult balance to strike to get it to work. But the motive was that Manson wanted to start a race war. So he sent his followers in to kill basically white people and write spooky shit in blood on the wall. Things like Helter Skelter, which was a Beatles song, and Piggies, which was also a Beatles song off the White Album. The idea being these murders will be so brutal that everyone will just assume black people did them, and it will start a race war.
Oh, my God.
Right. Yeah. No, so that's why when you were like, the reason is kind of lame, I was like, yeah, the reason in the movie is very lame. The reason in real life is crazy.
Jeez.
You know? And so like, and also I know which of his followers were in the car and which of the followers went into the house. And when Maya Hawke got out of the car or goes back to the car and drives away, I'm like, wait a minute, that didn't happen. You know, like that didn't happen in real life. And so then I was like, wait, where's this going? I feel like knowing the reality of what happened played into my viewing of it in a way that it never occurred to me until after you had said you were kind of lukewarm on it, where I was like, I bet she doesn't know the real story. And the real story is why it was so hard for me to watch the first time and not just feel sick, you know, until the very end. And then you see the titles go across the screen and you're like, oh, it's a fairy tale.
Yeah.
Like it could have been this way, you know?
And it still managed to, for lack of a better phrase, like tear my heart out in the end. Cause you just hear Tate come over the intercom. Like, is everything okay? Oh my God. Well, have him come on up. Right. Like it's your emotions really go through the ringer in the last minutes.
They do. And the other thing that I hadn't really thought about before this watch, but the very end when he goes up to see Sharon, he gets a happier ending than I realized.
Yeah.
Because what he gets is he finally gets to meet his next door neighbor. He finally gets to become friends with Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski and get cast in future Roman Polanski movies potentially.
Yeah.
And now, instead of being an actor on the decline, he's an actor with a second start. And it is he and Sharon in that moment have exactly the same outlook and trajectory. Nothing but up.
Yeah.
You know, whereas if the movie doesn't end that way, both of them have downward trajectories. Obviously, she dies and, you know, Cliff is fired and, you know, he's got Francesca and whatever, but his career is probably done more or less. They were going to sell the house and you're nobody if you don't own property in Hollywood or Los Angeles. So, you know, they were both headed for, in reality, both ended up in bad places. But because of the fairy tale aspect of it, they both have happy endings.
Yeah.
You know, and I never really considered his happy ending, you know.
Even even without the neighbor aspect, he gets to feel like a hero again because he brings out the flamethrower.
Right.
And listen, that girl was already fucked up. She was gonna die.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, maybe he gave her a quicker out than if he had just left her there and called the cops like a normal person. But no, he gets the flamethrower to feel like a badass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what's even better about that is the other thing he gets from this is the massive ego boost of the things. So he goes out and he's got the daiquiris in his hand and he yells at the fucking hippies. Yeah. And he was famous. They knew who he was.
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't over the hill. That was Jake Cahill. Holy shit, Jake Cahill just came and yelled at us. So he's famous still. Yeah. Even though he just went to make Italian pictures. And then when he comes out and he's talking to Jay Sebring, he tells him he uses the flamethrower. He's like, from the 14 Fists of McCluskey. Jay Sebring remembers him. He remembers him, and from something different than Bounty Law. He or from his recent stint on FBI, or or these Italian westerns.
Something I think he was more passionate about, by the way.
Yeah. He wanted that movie career for sure.
Yeah.
And so he's recognized for that. And then when Sharon buzzes down, she knows who he is too.
Yeah.
Like, so his ego boost in this, aside from his like adrenaline boost from the events of the entire evening, is extreme. Like, he's more relevant in that moment in his self than he's felt in years.
Yeah.
And that's something else I didn't quite see,
It's really impressive, to say the least, how Tarantino was able to capture how an actor feels. And it was also impressive that the actors were able to convey this, but like how an actor feels as they're doing a scene, before a scene, watching themselves. Like, he captured so much. Like, the moment that I think the two moments that stick out to me the most are Sharon watching herself and hearing people laugh at her and her just kind of smiling like, yay, they thought I was funny. Like, oh, I understand that. Yeah. And then when Rick Dalton has that moment after the little girl has complimented him and he's just like, trying not to cry.
Yeah. But failing.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he's so touched. And like, this movie is a series of Rick Dalton being validated. I
had a similar moment because I told you the other day I was pretending to be a patient.
Yeah.
And we give feedback to the students afterwards. Let them know like, hey, I appreciated when you did this. I experienced you as this kind of doctor. Like, these are first years, they're babies.
Yeah.
And like the first two, and they're not even supposed to do this. This is not something they normally do. But the first two both made a comment about like, you're a really good actor. And I was like,
nice. Thank you.
And in my head, and I also have to be like, it's not about me right now. But in my head, I'm just like, thank you.
Yeah, nice.
I wish. Can you open a theater instead of going to medical school? Like, can you cast me? Do you know people?
Because you clearly have good taste. We should talk.
Yeah.
So it's funny though, like, as we talk about these things, and I think of things that I hadn't thought of at all when watching these movies. It's just the thoughts that come up. That Rick's entire journey in this movie is one validation after another. Right? Like, and I never really thought of it that way, but like, he starts the movie
meeting with Mr. Schwartz, Al Pacino, and he lays it out for him. He tells him the truth of his career, and that is like the low point of his life. But he also gets this offer maybe to make Italian pictures.
Yeah.
But he's so upset he's crying in front of the Mexicans, and you're not supposed to cry in front of the Mexicans.
Oh my God.
It's so funny. Brad Pitt is such an ass in this movie, and he's like if Steve Sanders was cool.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, he's a total asshole. Like, everything he does he's ugh. But how do you take your eyes off of him in this movie? You're just like, God damn, like, he's amazing.
He's so incredible. I think he's done very well and I don't know if you could call it following George Clooney's steps, because I think George Clooney has a similar cadence in that he's just so good at being natural.
Yeah.
These are people who know what they have. They bring it to the table. I have no doubt too that they're just acting like themselves. But again,
I think there's probably a little bit of that. Sure.
Yeah, I think a little bit of that. But yeah.
So from that moment on, he gets dropped off at the studio to do the shoot, and Cliff tells him, "Don't forget, you're Rick fucking Dalton."
Yeah. And
so ego boost. And then he goes and he has the breakdown over Easy Breezy, but he has that scene of self-doubt after he screws up the Little Chili Pepper Heart Out scene. They have to redo that. But then he gets validated the next day in the scene with the little girl and Luke Perry. And he gets validated in going to make the Italian movies and how successful they are. And he's validated in all of those things when he comes back. And it's like he has these dark moments of the soul, but everything that happens in that movie to him is like lifting him.
Yeah.
Which is pretty interesting to me. Just thinking of that character who seems like he's on the way down, but every interaction he has is uplifting.
Yeah. And that conversation he had with the little girl, you can tell, I feel, could so easily have wrecked him.
Sure.
It's intimidating to see the younger generation come up. And what was really interesting too is I feel like you got a little bit of, you have the older acting style and you have the new acting style, which is like, I would like to be called my character name.
Right. Yes.
The part that killed me a little inside was when she was like, oh, it's fine. Just throw me around. Sometimes I throw myself around. I have extra padding. I like to throw myself around for fun. And it's like, honey, I am working with people like you and trying to stop that now.
Right. Yeah. I thought that was, I love that little character, that little girl. Like, she's so great. Yeah. And even in the, she stops comforting him to tell him she doesn't like to be called puddin' pie. And then goes back to comforting him.
Yeah.
I'm like, God damn, she's so good. Like, it feels like she steals that whole scene from Leonardo DiCaprio.
Absolutely.
And he's so good in everything. You know what I mean? And he just he saw it, he laid out, and this little girl just took it.
Yeah.
And she's so good in the whole scene. I kind of want to read that story about Easy Breezy myself.
Yeah.
It sounds very sad.
I loved her. I saw a little of my younger self in her, because I was definitely that well, this is supposed to happen here, and you're supposed to have this line. There's always that. I feel like the kids who really want to do this come across as know-it-all kids.
Sure.
And it's just their passion speaking through.
Right.
And it only seems know-it-all because we just all look at kids as if they're dumb.
Sure.
No?
Yeah. Yeah, and so that's child actors is an interesting segue to talk about the casting of this movie, because I'm never someone. I don't believe in ascribing motive to others because you just don't know. You never know why people do anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you can think, but what's clear to me, without being able to say specifically why, is that Tarantino was saying some things with the casting of this movie. And his casting made it more interesting because it adds a layer. It adds sort of a meta layer to the story. The story is aging actor on the decline and young aspiring star with the world in front of her, and who in real life we know it meets a tragic fate. But the Rick Dalton character is a guy who was a big TV star who wanted to make it in movies, and it never quite happened. So he went and made the Italian Westerns, and now he's doing guest spots on TV. And Tarantino cast this movie and filled it with fantastic TV famous actors who have never quite had a huge movie career. Like Luke Perry and Timothy Olyphant and Scoot McNairy and whoever else in this movie. And it was, even George Spahn was supposed to be Burt Reynolds. But like he was cast and did the table reads and stuff, but then he passed away. So that's where it became Bruce Dern. And Burt Reynolds kind of did the opposite thing, where he was like a big movie star who finished his career out in TV shows and then got like one big movie role towards the end that was like a lightning bolt, the Boogie Nights performance. That reminded people, oh my God, that's why this guy's so good. And that's what Tarantino's always done too. Like he cast John Travolta when John Travolta was, in Look Who's Talking 3.
Yeah.
Like his career had really sunk, and he's like, no, I like this guy. He can act. Even he was a TV actor, he was a movie actor, whatever. He can act. I'm putting him in this movie. And he cast this movie that way, almost with a knife's edge. And then he filled the background roles with children of actors.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that says, but it's interesting. Like Maya Hawke is in it, and Harley Quinn Smith, Kevin Smith's daughter, is in it. What's her name? The Pussy is Andy McDowell's daughter.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So there's just people in it that are kids of other famous people. And, I'm not even going to get into the nepotism thing because I think that's not what it's about.
Sure.
But it's an interesting, and feel free to get into it if you would like to, because I get it.
No, I don't need people to know how bitter I am yet.
But I think it's an interesting choice to connect it all, to try to connect multiple generations of Hollywood in a movie that's ostensibly about Hollywood.
Yeah. I'm racking my brain trying to think of like what it could mean. And I got nothing right at this moment.
Yeah. I just think it adds a layer, when the movie is set in Hollywood and is about Hollywood, that it's filled with actors and children of actors who have lived the experience of the main character.
I mean, much as I hate nepotism and how much it has taken over every part of the business, I think for a fairy tale about Hollywood, I think you needed people who have been brought up in it and who have been in it for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I bet kids of parents who have worked in this field don't see it with the rose-colored glasses that people new to Hollywood see it. I would venture to guess they have a bit more insight. Like me going to Hollywood right now, they're going to know more than I know. You know why? Because they were brought up in it. Like, and it's tough, but it's true. And you know, the same excuse is said for why they keep getting hired over newbies, because they've had training since utero.
Right. Yeah. There's stuff you don't have to teach them that's not even about the acting.
They have heard these terms over and over again. They've known the social status of everyone on set from the get-go. Right.
I think the other thing that's interesting too is that Tarantino, I've heard him talk about it, but in many ways, this movie is about his love for old TV shows. And growing up watching old TV shows, you know, when they weren't old TV shows, they were TV shows. Like when he was a kid, the things from the 60s and 70s that were on TV. And then even like the older things, the Westerns from the 50s that you would watch on Saturday matinee and blah, blah, blah. And so for the movie to be about how good this actor is, who is most famous from being on an old Western, and populating it with actors who are very good, who are most popular from being on TV shows from 10, 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
It's his casting in and of itself is a love letter to television.
Yeah.
You know, which I think is fantastic. And pointedly, Luke Perry's fucking great in this. He's so good.
So good.
You just go, man, this guy, he had this in him all the time.
Yeah.
But didn't get to shine like this, like to get a role in a thing like this. And it didn't come out until after he died.
Yeah.
You know? But there's other people in the movie who are still going to get to shine. You know, Timothy Olyphant, put him in a cowboy hat. I will watch that guy do anything.
Give him a badge. I'll watch him in anything. Because I mean, in Mandalorian, I think he's got a badge, but he's still got a cowboy look to him.
I think he has a hat too.
Oh my God!
I think he might. I mean, he's a marshal. He might actually have a hat. No, so thumbs up for him. And we talked a little bit about it, but *Halt and Catch Fire* is so good, and Scoot McNairy is in that, and he's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So you know, the fact that the movie itself is in practice a love letter to television, I think is pretty amazing. So that's one of the reasons I really like it, and why this is one of my favorite Tarantino movies.
This sort of leads into a question that I had, or that I wrote down, because I feel like this has happened in the course of our lifetime. But, you know, TV has obviously become much bigger, become a much bigger deal, to the point where I would say more people are pursuing a TV career than a film one. And I'm wondering when you think this changed. Like, when do you think this happened?
The easy answer is The Sopranos.
Oh, okay.
It could predate that a little bit, but not very much. No. And even after The Sopranos, there still was a dividing line between film star and TV star. But I think The Sopranos said, look at what you can do in this medium.
Yeah.
And it opened doors like a TV season doesn't have to be 22 episodes. It can be 11.
Yeah.
It can be 13. It can be 8. They don't have to hit at the same time every year. So what that does is it makes the actor's schedule more flexible. It makes it a smaller time commitment so they can go do other things.
Yeah.
And when you show the quality of the work being what it is and what you can do, it makes it that much more enticing. So you get shows like Damages that Glenn Close came and like did. And you're like, but Glenn Close is not a TV person. But she was on The Shield too. Like she's a movie star who came to do TV. And when I think actors started seeing you could dip in, do some great work. It's only a 3-month commitment, the same as a film set, whatever, and then go do other work. I think it got so much more appealing. I don't know. What do you think?
I was actually thinking later, and granted, this is not meant to be a dig, I promise, but like we didn't get satellite until I was in middle school. So it's not like I was getting to watch a lot of things that you were watching.
Well, sure.
But for me, I feel like I started noticing it with, AMC, Breaking Bad, and Mad Men. Like, those were 2 knockout shows with intense acting that I had not seen elsewhere on TV.
Sure.
I don't want to knock the primetime stuff because there's some great acting on there. Unfortunately, it's written to be like a soap opera eventually.
Depends on the show, but yeah.
So I feel like it was as late as Breaking Bad or Mad Men. But even then, that's not much farther back from The Sopranos.
It's not. And I think The Sopranos was when it started. I don't think that's when it landed. When it became Meryl Streep is on Only Murders in the Building with Paul Rudd. You know what I mean? Like, these are movie stars. Like, different types of movie stars, but these are movie stars. Steve Martin is a movie star, and he's on a TV show. And now he's 78 or whatever, but
I feel like with the advent of HBO, I feel like HBO may have started it. I hate to give them that credit, but I feel like they probably started it.
Yeah, they did. And it that late 90s block that they had that cycled through the year of The Sopranos and The Wire and Oz, which was another show Luke Perry was on, by the way, Full Frontal, if you want to go watch it.
He's probably wearing a prosthetic.
I don't know. I honestly can't remember, but
if he's erect,
I remember he was in it. And if you want to strap in for some brutality, Oz is the way to go. But it's a really good show.
Strap in. Nice pun.
Oh, that wasn't what I was trying to do, but I'll take it. So there's a different direction I wanted to go with TV. And it's directly connected to the thesis of the program.
Great.
And I didn't realize it. This is the thing I didn't realize until I sat down. And because, like when we were getting ready to talk, and I was like, oh shit, here it is. So we've talked before about Saturday night television when we were growing up.
Yes.
And how you had a certain Dr. Quinn medicine woman.
Yes.
And I had Love Boat and Fantasy Island.
Oh, mine's better.
It is, but mine's illustrative. Because those shows, Love Boat and Fantasy Island, were the destinations for Rick Dalton. They were the real life, what happens to aging stars and up and comers. It's Sharon Tate could have been on them too. They were loaded with guest stars, and it was people on the backside of their career or people on the rise.
Yeah.
No one who was massively famous in 1976 was doing The Love Boat, but people who were super famous in 1950 were doing The Love Boat. And that's Aaron Spelling. So the connection between Aaron Spelling and the type of TV, some of the types of TV he made in the 70s to this movie are so much stronger than Luke Perry and Rebecca Gayheart. They're foundational.
Yeah.
They're the point of the movie. It's the reality for Rick Dalton. He's gonna play the heavy on these shows and get his ass kicked by, the newest swinging dick in town, or however Pacino put it. And then he's gonna end up at age 50 doing a shot on the Love Boat, doing a shot on Fantasy Island. And then he's going to continue on into the 80s playing the bad guys on Starsky and Hutch and Hardcastle and McCormick and Simon and Simon and Hunter and Spencer for Hire. And Aaron Spelling was in not all those shows were his, but Fantasy Island and the Love Boat are his. Starsky and Hutch was his.
Oh, okay.
I'm 99% sure. I got to double check that, but I'm 99% sure. Vegas. That was his. Those are the shows that Rick Dalton ends up on.
Wow.
Brought it home.
You did. One could say without confirmation that Tarantino was inspired by Spelling's work.
I mean, he loved TV, and the stuff he loved was I think it would be a stretch to say that Quentin Tarantino was a Love Boat fan.
I would love that.
I kind of would too. But I bet he watched the Mod Squad.
Oh man!
I bet he watched Vegas.
I bet he saw the Nancy Drew Hardy Boy TV series.
I'm sure that he did. I mean, he has a plug, unpaid for plug for Quentin Tarantino's his podcast that he does. Which is called a name I can't remember because it's on hiatus. They finished their first season. It is scrolling. Unsolicited plug for the Video Archives podcast with Quentin Tarantino, where he goes through old VHS tapes from the video store he used to work in and watches them with the guy that he used to work there with. And the movies they watch, it's so much stuff you've never heard of. And I've watched a few of them, they'll pop up on the Criterion channel and you get to see the schlock fests that he likes and the Revenge-O-Matics that he was into. And some of these movies are wow, this is a really good movie. I've literally never heard of this thing. Your enjoyment of the Video Archives podcast hinges entirely on how you feel about this sentence. I'm going to listen to Quentin Tarantino talk for 3 hours about a movie I've never seen.
Not for me.
And very, very, very reasonable take. I wasn't sure. Turns out I like it a lot.
Sure.
But it's a very specific flavor of show.
We have a long road trip coming up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm already making a note of all the things that we should listen to while we drive, because I'm going to be putting Walter through a 12-hour drive just to save on an Airbnb, which is fine because then I get to stay at my sister's, play with kids. Mostly it's for the big ass bathtub that she has. Let's just be real.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. I will drive 12 hours for a nice bath, people.
Bathtub or bust.
Yes. But yeah, so we're going to need stuff to listen to. And I will make a note of that because who knows? That could come up.
Mm-hmm. You'd be surprised at how interesting it can be. I recommend not listening to ones that are about comedies because it tends to be a little more, I thought that was really funny too. But when he's doing stuff about blaxploitation movies or zombie movies or, hospital thrillers from the 70s, shit like that is very interesting. And there's a couple things that I watched. I watched Mickey and Mickey was this movie that they talked about with Peter Falk in it. It was really good. I really liked it a lot. And it's a movie I'd never heard of. So shouts to the Video Archives podcast. Hopefully it'll come back in a few months.
In a similar vein, and just a side note, if you all haven't done the MST3K Gauntlet, there's what you can do on your next snow day with Liam.
Oh, really? What is the Gauntlet? I don't know what the Gauntlet is.
Oh, boy. It is.
Oh, the movie The Gauntlet?
No. It is a gauntlet of films. It is a gauntlet of bad movies. I think it's 6 hours.
Whew. It's a lot.
I mean, listen, we did it all on Thanksgiving Day. We took breaks for food. We took break because you know me, I have an agenda. I'm going to stick to it. And he was like, but movies. And I'm like, yes, but turkey.
Right. Yeah.
Like
and pie. There's pie.
Yeah. But this was my first turkey I was making. And I'm very proud of how it turned out.
Good job. Turkeys are a bitch to make.
First one. It was a maple bourbon glaze. It was fantastic, Jeff.
High five to you.
Thank you. I should be making the turkey for all of our family functions now. Just saying.
Well, you got to come into town like 2 days early.
Yeah. Oh, podcast listeners, if you pay to listen to this Patreon, then I can go home for holidays.
There you go.
Just saying. But yeah, the Gauntlet. I think it's 6 movies. Maybe I don't know if it's worth doing with a 12-year-old. I don't know. But I feel like it's something you all would enjoy. Laura may hate me for suggesting it.
Oh, well, she'll just go in the other room.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Now, we don't stand on ceremony around here. I'm not interested in this. I'm going to go in the other room. Enjoy it.
We haven't gotten to that point in our relationship.
I watch a lot of basketball by myself. Let's just put it that way. So is there anything else that we need to touch on from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Has your opinion of it changed over the last hour? Not that that was what I was trying to do. I'm just wondering if the conversation did anything.
No, I mean, again, I look on it like I look on many works of art that I don't necessarily, that aren't my favorite. I'm like, This is a work of art and it speaks to someone more than it speaks to me. But again, we just spent like almost an hour talking about it. So it did its job. Like that's the thing people so often forget in this age of cancellation. People think that because you don't like how something went,
right?
How a story
that it wasn't worth it.
That it wasn't worth it. That it was crap, and that it doesn't deserve to exist. No,
right?
You're talking about it. Ergo, it did its job because
it got in there.
Newsflash, people, we're all just trying to be seen.
Right.
And it has a message, and it had a very, luckily. This is being told by a very compelling storyteller. So, I'll be jumping into rewatching Pulp Fiction sooner or Inglourious Bastards with you before I necessarily jump into this again. I like Inglourious Bastards, but again, like I know it's not for everyone.
Yeah, where does this one fall in your Tarantino rankings of things you've seen? Understanding that you probably haven't seen all of them.
Yeah. Well, and also it's been a while since I've seen some.
Sure.
Also, I feel like, so I think Pulp Fiction's first.
Okay.
One, I got to watch it with you for the first time. So that was, a fun, bonding moment. And also it's a good movie.
Yeah. And doing things with me makes everything better. I mean, let's be honest.
It does. I'm going to say the Kill Bill movies next because I love that they go across genres.
Sure.
I think that's really compelling. And again, it's just like it's a revenge story, but it's so much more than that, I feel. But I haven't seen it in a while.
Yeah.
And I'm hesitant to say Inglourious Bastards next, but I probably will because again, I remember
a lot of people love that. That is a lot of people's favorite. It's not mine, but it's a lot of people's favorite.
Yeah, I remember liking it, and I remember a lot of people joked that they didn't think I could handle the final scene, and I was like, fuck you, I did.
Right.
This movie hadn't come out yet, so their foreshadowing was preemptive. I will say I liked this better than Django, because again, some of the violence in Django is also like, whoa.
It's a lot. Yeah.
But I think it's a lot, and I knew this while watching it. It's the American Inglourious Bastards. Like, I imagine Europeans watch Django and think it is a romp, even though they also had slavery. But we have a harder time acknowledging it than other countries do. Maybe. Right. I don't know. I'm not a perfect historian.
Right.
And those are all the ones I know.
Movies, those are the ones you know. Gotcha.
Those are the ones I know.
Okay. This is a top 3 for me. In some order, my top 3 is Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown, and this.
What is Jackie Brown?
Jackie Brown is his second movie.
Oh, okay.
And it is so good. It didn't do as well as Pulp Fiction because it's like, wait, you did Reservoir Dogs and then Pulp Fiction. This next thing is going to be, I don't even know what. And it's like a caper movie.
Oh.
It's based on an Elmore Leonard novel, and it's great. It's like the most straightforward movie that Tarantino's made, and it's so good. Yeah. Jackie Brown might be my favorite. It sort of depends on my mood, I think. And then this is a third placer for me, I think. Reservoir Dogs is like middle of the pack. People love that. And I think Django and Inglourious Bastards are kind of the same movie.
They are.
And neither one of them hit for me, so those are probably my 2 least favorite. The Hateful Eight I like probably more than most people. I just thought it was really cool. I mean, it's a one-room stage play. For 3 hours. It's really good.
I'm in. I love that.
Yeah. Big violence in it. But tension, and the whole thing takes place with the exception of like some setup stuff at the beginning and some stuff at the end. The whole movie takes place in basically one room. And it's really good. So that's probably like 4th or 5th, and Kill Bill is right around there too. I think that's got them all. The only one I didn't mention is the Death Proof, which was like his half of the Grindhouse double feature that he made with Robert Rodriguez.
Okay.
And his Death Proof is it's a 70s race car movie. And it is shot so well that you are on the edge of your seat. The chase scene, you just like the whole time just squirming as it's happening. It's super effective. It's great. I really, really like it. But yeah, this is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is a top 3 for me. It's one of those, I saw it and I couldn't get it out of my gut for like a week. Wow. I didn't even know why. It was just in there, just sort of moving around and doing stuff.
Like a baby.
And I've seen it now, I don't know, half a dozen times, and I don't know, it doesn't get worse, you know.
I had delusions of grandeur that I could find the book and read it in 3 days because I wanted to be that person before we recorded today. And then because of my workload this week, I was just like, no, it's okay if you're not Hermione Granger this week.
Right. Well, so you were gonna read the novelization?
Yes.
Oh, I think it's totally worth it.
I mean, I'll still read it. I just really wanted to be that person. Like, well, I read the book.
Right. Well, actually,
like you, but in 3 days.
Right. If you haven't read it yet, I'll take it home next time and I'll leave it there, and then you can pick it up from my mom or your mom or whoever. But, so I think we did it. I think we Once Upon a Timed
in Hollywood.
I feel good about this one.
I do too.
Again, I wasn't sure how it was going to go, but I was so interested in this movie and talking about it. It was fun. So So until next time, Booze Meisters, cheers.
Cheers.